I've been feeling just on the edge lately, welling up to the tiniest sentiment expressed on TV. I realize that we're a week into the Easter season, but I still feel like I did on Sunday, looking into the empty tomb with Mary. As I stand with her, I realize that there is another person, that we're not alone in our feelings. There's another of Jesus' followers who is feeling equally overwhelmed. His name is Thomas Judah. Thomas is the anglicization of Didymus, which is Greek for twin. And there's a lot of conjecture about this name. Some say that because Jesus had a brother named Judah, Thomas is Jesus' twin brother. Others suggest that he was the twin of Judas Iscariot. Or perhaps, I don't know, it's just a nickname he carried from long before he ever met any of these disciples. I also wonder if perhaps it speaks not about who he was so much as his relationship with Jesus. If it speaks to how devoted he was to him. After all, earlier in the gospel, Thomas was ready to go to Jerusalem with Jesus and die with him. If that's the case, then perhaps like Mary, he separated himself from the others because that's the only way he could grieve. And then when told by his friends that Jesus has appeared, on one hand, he is incredulous. Perhaps on the other hand, he's hurt that Jesus didn't appear to him first. Perhaps his demand for physical proof is a way of deflecting, seeking rational reasons in order to protect his broken heart. Now we know that grieving often includes a lot of asking questions, trying to find reasons for what has happened. And we well know that there's no guarantee that answers come. And that's okay. RHUC invites us to love the questions, to treat them like locked rooms or texts in a language we no longer understand. This is wise advice, especially right now, because our collective experience, as we know, is one of grief. And within that grief is a lot of speculation, explanation seeking going on. We hear it in conspiracy theories about how the virus started, or in speculations about how the WHO initially handled the outbreak and their relationship with a foreign power. Questions about national supply chains and our emergency readiness as a government. Some questions are legitimate, some less so, and answers will eventually come. But I wonder if in many ways the questions are simply Thomas saying, I don't understand, give me an explanation for what's happening. Within all this, I think there's some RHUC-esque business wisdom that fits. It's an adage, love the question, not the solution. Often an entrepreneur has a big idea, but after they've created a product, discovers that it isn't bringing them untold riches after all. Why? Because the big idea solved too small a question. They needed to dig deeper into the root issues facing their customer. And this applies to our situation. A spotlight has been shone on gaping holes in our social safety net, especially long-term care homes. Once the virus is under control, I'm sure that some solutions will be sought, likely with big dollars attached. I wonder, though, if we are going to not pause long enough to ask some questions, like, why were there not big dollars there in the first place? Again, there's a question related to the dire situation in homeless shelters. Again, solutions will be sought. I can guarantee that. But will we dig deeply enough into the root causes of homelessness? And will we treat those of us who are living rough as equal partners in trying to find solutions? In the end, the more I sit with one question, the more other questions start to emerge. Income insecurity, property speculation, access to technology, racial marginalization. And those are just questions we're grappling with here in Canada. They don't even begin to address concerns in the global south. Refugee camps, poor drinking water, poor sanitation, inadequate health care. And as we head toward Earth Day, I find myself looking even further, pondering the link between pandemics and human impact on the environment. As we ponder how to live with greater compassion with other humans, will we pause long enough to consider that we're part of a sacred web and that what we do to one strand impacts the whole? Now, I'm in no position to give any answers to these questions. And frankly, to do so undermines RHUC's advice to live into the question. And at another point, we really need to ponder these questions together. And this is where I think the gospel offers us some insight. When Jesus appears to Thomas, he accepts all of his questions. He accepts all of his feelings. And then he says to him, believe. This isn't about an assertion of the mind. Jesus is inviting him to trust. If we really are in this together, then we need to trust each other as we wrestle with these questions. We need to believe that we all want what is best in the long run. And so as I wrestle with questions, I start from my own assumptions. We all do this, which means when I hear an opinion that I struggle with, and I often hear some opinions I struggle with, I need to reframe my reaction from one of judgment to curiosity. From, how can you think like that? To, I wonder how you came to that conclusion. Then as we all sit with openness to each other, we come closer to finding lasting solutions for us all. Now, this isn't something we can all do simply by our own exercise of will. The gospel again offers us some help. In the first half of the reading, we hear how Jesus comes to the apostles, to his followers, and he breathes on them like God breathing life into the first human. He gifts them with spirit, and in so doing offers them a spiritual reset. I really believe that the issues we're facing are ultimately spiritual ones. They speak about what we value and what we fear. They speak about how we feel about aging and other vulnerabilities. They speak to how we treat others, including the more than human, and they reveal a lot about how we feel about death. These are really big questions that we're wrestling with, and ones I believe we need to approach with hearts and minds open to deeper wisdom, to the gift of the Holy Spirit calling forth in us and what she is calling forth for us. Now, we may think this is the first time that anybody's ever experienced something like this, but it's not. Throughout human history, there have been epidemics and pandemics and plagues. We're not the first to face such a crisis. Example, in the 14th century, as plagues swept through England, John Wycliffe, fearful of the plague, self-isolated. The result, he gave us the first English translation of the New Testament. And he planted the seeds in his writings for the Protestant Reformation that would emerge 200 years later. Equally so, in the same period, Julian of Norwich, after her entire family died, walled herself off in the back of a church. She became a hermit. And while she was in seclusion, she had a profound mystical experience. over a couple of days, which she wrote down into what became known as Revelations of Divine Love, the earliest surviving English language book by a woman. In it, she speaks how Jesus affirmed to her, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Friends, we are in a similar time, and like other crisis moments, this time of danger can be an opportunity for creative inspiration and spiritual insight. As I said at the beginning of this reflection, we're only 1 week into the Easter season, and for once I'm glad it is 50 days long. Given everything we're facing, I know that for me it's going to take a long time for this promise of new life to take hold in me. In the meantime, may we sit with the question, and as we listen to the Spirit both within us and between us, we'll live into the answers that we need.